I didn't build the berm to make a statement, you know? I built it to survive. After the flood of 21, when that river behind our neighborhood broke loose, swallowed half my backyard, and chewed its way straight through our lives, something in me just refused to ever let water get that close again. That storm, man, you should have seen it. Ripped fences right out of the ground, rolled muddy water right up to our garage doors, and just waltzed in like it owned the place. Left knee-deep brown sludge in living rooms. Took out family photo albums, stuff you can't replace. The folks 2 doors down had to gut their entire first floor. Me, I got lucky. My place sits a few inches higher, and I'd hauled out sandbags in time, but that feeling, water inches from the edge, it rattled me. So next spring, I spent every spare weekend hauling dirt, stacking stone, reading every slope and runoff angle like my life depended on it, because in a way it did. I'd been Army logistics. I knew terrain, knew water, knew how to make it move where I wanted, way better than any HOA landscaper ever could. And I'll tell you right now, I didn't ask for permission. I didn't need it. That berm sat 10 feet clear of the property line, not a blade out of bounds, and it was sloped, packed, seeded with wild grass, the whole thing. Not pretty sure, but it worked. Come rainy season, dry basement, dry lawn, first real peace I'd had in years. But if you think that was the end of it, you don't know East Briar Trails. Here, the HOA cares more about matching hedges than disaster prep. You can't even paint your door without filling out forms. And if your mailbox isn't within 10 shades of approved black, good luck. At first, it was just snide little comments. Building a bunker back there, Frank. Hope that mountain doesn't slide down into our yard. You know, classic neighborhood comedy. Then, Saturday morning, I get a knock on the door. It's Diane Mayer, the HOA vice president, clipboard, tennis skirt. That look people get when they think their rules matter more than your life. Doesn't even say good morning, just launches in, this isn't in compliance. Points over my shoulder at the yard like she's spotting a fire. It's not consistent with community aesthetics, she tells me, like the only thing that matters is how things look. I tell her plain and simple, it's just dirt on my property, and it actually helps with runoff. That's your opinion, she says, like I'm a little kid, then promises a formal notice and struts off. I can handle being annoyed, but that simmering, slow boil kind of anger, the kind that creeps up when you know you're right, but someone with a clipboard wants to steamroll you, that's the worst. I did my homework, pulled up city codes, checked with a friend at the county hydrology office, double-checked every number. What I built was legal. HOA couldn't say a thing. So I sent my rebuttal. 3 days later, thick envelope in my mailbox, gold HOA emblem like a royal decree, basically telling me to get rid of the berm or pay $200 a day, starting in 2 weeks. That's when it got personal, because that word, unauthorized, that was their way of saying, your fear, your work, your flood story doesn't matter to us. They didn't care what I'd been through, just wanted things to match. I remember walking circles in my living room, fists tight, the old family albums I'd saved from the flood staring at me from the shelf. I could still smell the mud if I thought about it too hard. There was no way I was letting them set me up for disaster again. If they wanted a fight, they'd get one. After that came the escalation, a notarized letter, final compliance warning, citing some HOA covenant like they'd found the nuclear option. Enforcement action, meaning they could come onto my land, knock the berm down, and bill me for it. I called the office, got voicemail, left a message, cited ordinances, asked for a board meeting before they even thought about sending in a backhoe. No answer. So I showed up at the open board meeting, big room, fake rustic vibes, retirees and lawn chairs, board up front. They breezed through budget updates, playground repairs, not a word about my issue. When the floor opened, I stood. I'm Frank Delaney, 1427 Pine Wash Drive, here about the compliance letters for my storm berm. A few heads turned. I laid it out, built within code, improves drainage, private property, evidence sent in, no reply. Diane gives me the fake smile, tells me it's not in harmony with East Briar Trails aesthetics. Violates Article 3, Section A. I shoot back. Article 3, Section A is about buildings, not earthwork. Landscaping's exempt unless it's on common ground, and this isn't. Brent, the HOA president, pipes up about complaints and property values, But when I ask if anyone has an engineering credential, all I get is silence. That's when the twist happened. Paul Becker, quiet old guy in the back, retired mailman, lives downhill from me, pipes up, "Didn't Frank's house stop the water from reaching ours last time?" Another neighbor agrees, says the berm helped. For a moment, the room isn't sure which way to go. Diane shuts it down fast. This isn't a debate. But I'll make it clear, legal fight's next if they come for the berm. Didn't stop them. 2 days later, enforcement scheduled for May 3rd. Contractor, no signatures, just the HOA seal. I called zoning. No help, but they gave me a PDF stating I was in the right. I called a land use attorney, Arlene Simmons. She tells me they can't demolish it without due process, but you'll need an injunction to stop them. By now, it wasn't just a berm, it was a principle. I filed the paperwork. Waited. Came home one day to find a wooden stake in the yard, orange ribbons, spray paint, a sign, demolition scheduled. It felt like a rock all over again. That helpless feeling, waiting for something bad to drop, just hoping you make it out. I begged for an emergency hearing. The board agreed, mostly because Arlene sent a legal notice about liability. We met in a cold back room under humming fluorescence. Diane led the charge, Brent by her side. Arlene sat beside me, told me to stick to the facts. But I couldn't help it. I explained why the berm mattered. Showed the reports, zoning maps, soil tests, everything. This isn't a pergola, I said. It's my lifeline. They tried the same arguments, standards, visual harmony, complaint from residents, but couldn't give a single name or document. I lost my cool for a moment, called them out for hiding behind process instead of listening to reason. The board said they'd review. The next day, I got a call, not from them, from the contractor. "We're coming at 8 a.m., the guy says, apologetic. I didn't wait for the wrecking ball. Went to City Hall, begged for an emergency inspection. Jorge Morales, a city inspector, took pity, flew a drone, confirmed the berm actually diverted runoff safely. Gave me a signed report, but it didn't stop the machine. May 3rd, 7:55 a.m. Crew rolls up. Backhoe, orange vests. I'm filming, report in hand. Diane shows up, gives the nod. Proceed. That sound, diesel engine roaring, dirt torn open, is something you never forget. In 20 minutes, they undid all my work. Flattened the land, yanked up the grass, left my yard a scar. Diane promised guidelines for restoration, like I should thank her. Arlene didn't miss a beat, threatened legal action on the spot. And right then, as if on cue, the sky turned gray, wind started howling, the storm was coming. Category 1, then upgraded to Category 2 hurricane. Rowan, tracking straight for us. No bottom, nowhere to run. I didn't sit around feeling sorry for myself. I hit the supply yard, loaded sandbags, called in every favor. Neighbors who'd once snickered now showed up with gloves and shovels. Paul, the young couple across the street, even a few new faces. We ringed my backyard with a wall of sandbags, dug a trench, did everything we could. Wasn't as good as the berm, but it was something. The storm hit hard. Rain came sideways, storm drains overflowed, power died. I watched water rush down the street, creep to my yard, slam into the sandbags, veer away. Brent, the HOA president, tried to save his place last minute. Too late. Water poured in 3 feet in his basement. Diane's house. Fence gone, foundation cracked, rose garden ruined. 5 homes flooded on our side. 2 red tagged as unsafe. Mine? Dry as a bone. The only thing left was proof that the berm had worked. I gave all the documentation to the city, photos, videos, every report, every letter. The fallout was immediate. The HOA called an emergency meeting. The whole neighborhood showed up. No more just the retirees and busybodies, but families, teenagers, everybody with something to lose. Diane and Brent tried to talk their way out, but this time the crowd wasn't buying it. Paul stood up and called them out. "You tore down the only thing keeping us safe." Marlene, from across the street, shouted, "You just didn't like how Frank's yard looked, and now we're all paying for it." I laid the documents on the table and asked, if power isn't paired with wisdom, what do you get? Disaster. You could feel the room change. It was like someone opened a window. Folks started passing around petitions. Within days, enough signatures for a special election. The local news ran a story, cameras filming my dry backyard. Election night came, and Diane and Brent were out, gone in a single vote. The next morning, we rebuilt the berm. Not just me this time. Half the neighborhood was out there, shovels in hand, sweating and talking, turning the land into something safer, stronger. Eliza Tran, the new board president, a civil engineer, asked me to join the infrastructure committee. I told her I'd consider it, if they started by listening, not lecturing. Things changed. New policies. Private flood defense allowed. Old review committee renamed the Resilience Board. People dropped by for advice on trenches, gravel, drainage. High schoolers interviewed me for climate projects. The local university asked to study the berm. Even a county wanted my input at town hall. Funny how survival makes you the expert. But I wasn't done. Arlene filed a formal complaint. HOA property trespass, reckless endangerment. The hearing was public, press, neighbors, even folks from other HOAs. Diane tried to defend herself, but had nothing. Jorge, the inspector, laid it out. Berm was sound, removal led to flooding. The city ruled in my favor. Fines, reforms, restitution. Vindication, not victory. I felt it settle in me, heavy but right. By autumn, fences and lives were being rebuilt. Diane moved away. Brent, quieter, saw me at the hardware store and just nodded. No apology, just understanding. The new board was full of listeners, doers, people who'd learned the hard way that you can't stop water with a policy or patch a wound with a form letter. The neighborhood grew closer, roots deeper, not perfect but stronger. The night before winter, I checked the berm, kicked the sod, felt the earth hold. Paul came by, asked if I wanted to plant trees along the trail, roots to hold what we'd all rebuilt. As we dug in the mud, others joined. No one talked about whose fault it was anymore, just what we do next. When the first maple went in, we all stepped back. Years from now, nobody will remember whose yard the water used to flood, just what stood, what endured. And me? I remember the berm, the fight, the silence after the rain. And I know what matters isn't the dirt, but the refusal to back down the moment a community decides to stand together. So, let me ask you, when the storm comes to your door, are you going to wait for someone to save you, or will you build the line yourself? Drop your stories below. Tell me, where do you draw the line between following rules and standing up for what's right? Because sometimes the only thing stronger than water is people who refuse to be washed away.